Some Star Wars weapons were so powerful, the Jedi tried to erase them from history. Today, we uncover the ones you were never meant to know about. Let's get started. That's no moon. It's an $852 quadrillion budget cut waiting to happen. The Death Star wasn't just a weapon. It was the Empire's idea of a flex. A moon-sized flex. Imagine this. A battle station 120 kilometers in diameter, looming in space like the world's most ominous golf ball. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the second version showed up, bigger, meaner, and measuring a whopping 160 kilometers wide. At its heart lay a hypermatter reactor, burning with the intensity of multiple suns, fueled by stellar plasma contained in energy bottles, because apparently even space reactors come with trendy drinkware. This beast powered the Death Star's pride and joy, a super laser capable of obliterating entire planets in a single shot. That's right. Alderaan never stood a chance. Firing the weapon required immense power, which came at a cost. After a full power blast, the entire station had to wait a whole 24 hours before doing it again. Talk about performance anxiety. Now, for a place designed to murder planets, the Death Star surprisingly tried to maintain a decent work-life balance. Inside its vast interior, divided into 24 administrative zones and 2 massive equatorial trenches, you'd find everything from hangars and tractor beams to shops, parks, and even a cantina named Hardheart, where exhausted crew could sip cocktails and bond over who got stuck cleaning the trash compactor that day. Despite its ridiculous size and terrifying power, the Death Star had one fatal flaw, a tiny thermal exhaust port that led straight to the main reactor. And wouldn't you know it, Rebel engineers just happened to fire a proton torpedo down that exact hole. Whoops. But how did this nightmare get made? Well, it started as a crazy idea by a guy named Red Sar from Cianer Systems, then got handed to Palpatine, who said, "Yeah, let's do it." From there, the Geonosians under Archduke Poggle the Lesser began building the station's skeleton, while Imperial engineer Bevel Lemelisk tackled the science of turning kyber crystals into death beams. The real kicker? Galen Erso, secretly rebelling from the inside, helped create the Death Star's core systems and slipped in the flaw that would eventually doom it. That little act of sabotage was all the rebels needed at the Battle of Yavin. One farm boy, one trench run, and boom! The galaxy's most expensive project gone in a puff of space dust. The second Death Star, even larger, still unfinished, and still exploded thanks to a ragtag team of rebels, Ewoks, and Lando in a borrowed cape. And if you think the Death Star is just science fiction, in 2012, people actually petitioned the US government to build one. The response: it would take 833,000 years and all the steel on Earth. So, maybe not. It doesn't blow up planets. It just builds the army to conquer them. Long before the Death Star ever fired its first beam, another superweapon ruled the stars, not through destruction, but creation. The Star Forge was built 30,000 years before the Battle of Yavin by a species called the Rakatan, who combined advanced tech with dark side sorcery. Unlike other weapons, the Star Forge didn't need a targeting system. It didn't need to aim. It just made stuff. Non-stop. Think of it as the galaxy's most evil 3D printer on steroids. Orbiting a star in the Lehun system, it absorbed raw solar energy and fed it into its manufacturing core. But that wasn't enough. The Rakata were steeped in the dark side, and they infused the station with their cruelty and ambition. Over time, the Forge became something unnatural, semi-sentient, corrupt, and hungry. It fed off its creator's evil and returned it tenfold. And as its power grew, it twisted even the Rakata into monsters, dragging their empire into ruin. For thousands of years, the Forge drifted in darkness, forgotten by the galaxy, until 2 Sith Lords, Revan and Malak, discovered its location through ancient star maps. They reignited the factory, and the station once again churned out fleets, ships, droids, weapons, with terrifying efficiency. Malak, fully consumed by power, even learned how to feed on Jedi captured aboard the station, using their life force to heal himself mid-battle. Revan, after a messy betrayal and a Jedi mind wipe, eventually returned to the Star Forge, rediscovered who he was, and led a final assault alongside the Republic. The battle ended in fire, betrayal, redemption, and the total destruction of the Forge. Today, the Star Forge is legend. But for a time, it was more terrifying than any Death Star, not because of what it destroyed, but because of what it created. Centerpoint Station. Not just a weapon, an ancient planetary tugboat powered by nightmares. Before hyperspace lanes, before the Republic, before most of galactic civilization, there was Centerpoint Station. Built over 100,000 years ago by the Celestials, cosmic beings so powerful they made the Force itself nervous, this station wasn't just a superweapon, it was a galactic sculptor. A station so massive, 350 kilometers long, it made the Death Star look like a droid in a fishbowl. Centerpoint's specialty? A hyperspace tractor beam strong enough to move planets. Want to reshape an entire solar system? No problem. Need to trap a dark god named Abeloth inside a black hole cluster? Boom! It did that too. But like all ancient weapons built by mysterious gods, it didn't stay dormant forever. Over the centuries, settlers moved in, unknowingly living in a cosmic engine of mass destruction. They called its core Hollowtown, grew crops there, raised families, until oops, someone turned it back on. In 18 ABY, scientists from Sikoria activated the beam and accidentally destroyed a nearby star. The resulting energy surge vaporized Hollowtown and everyone in it. The galaxy panicked. Again. During the Yuuzhan Vong War, the station was repurposed as a weapon once more, used to destroy stars, annihilate fleets, and eventually, itself. The Jedi, realizing the station was too dangerous to exist, reprogrammed it to self-destruct, but not before one last mishap. A grieving technician tried to use the weapon for revenge, unaware it had been re-rigged to blow up. The result? A gravitic implosion that erased the station. And everyone aboard, in a heartbeat. And worse yet, that act of destruction destabilized the prison of Abeloth, the chaos entity the Celestials had once sealed away. So yeah, maybe leave the ancient planet movers alone next time. World Devastators. Why destroy a planet when you can eat it and make more TIE fighters? If the Death Star was a sledgehammer, the World Devastators were mechanical locusts. When the reborn Emperor Palpatine returned from the dead again, he decided that blowing up planets was too quick. Instead, he wanted machines that could rip them apart, melt them down, and turn them into weapons. Because apparently, recycling is evil now. These skyscraper-sized monstrosities hovered over worlds like Mon Calamari and used tractor beams to literally tear the surface up, oceans, cities, crust, and all, sucking it into their molecular furnaces. Inside, foundries built new starfighters, droids, cruisers, even more world devastators. That's right, they were basically building evil babies, and each one had a droid brain that managed production and could upgrade itself, meaning every devastator was smarter and more terrifying than the last. Some even theorized that if left unchecked, they'd build enough of themselves to turn the galaxy into one giant factory floor. But here's where things went sideways for the Emperor. Luke Skywalker infiltrated the Empire, pretending to be a Sith apprentice, and hacked the Devastator command system. With help from R2-D2, he uploaded a virus that turned the machines against each other. What followed? A robot civil war in space. The Devastators started blasting one another to bits, and the New Republic seized the chaos to end the threat. At least one was captured and studied, but after public backlash, and probably a bunch of scary dreams, the Republic dismantled them all. The Galaxy Gun. Why fly to your enemies when your missiles can do the traveling for you? Ah yes, the Galaxy Gun, Palpatine's long-distance breakup tool. If the Death Star was overkill, the Galaxy Gun was overkill with Wi-Fi. Built in 10 ABY, this monstrous cannon was stationed above BIS and stretched 7.2 kilometers long. Basically, a giant interstellar rifle. Its entire job? Firing hyperspace-capable missiles that could travel across the galaxy, bypass defenses, and deliver planet-destroying payloads with pinpoint precision. Each missile was a masterpiece of death, armed with particle disintegrator warheads, capable of hyperspace jumps, shielded and armed with laser cannons, could dodge and shoot back at interceptors. First shot? Straight at the New Republic base on Pinnacle Moon. Boom. Gone. Then came other targets, one after another, as the Empire's enemies started vanishing from the map like they'd been erased from existence. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, one final shot was lined up, until R2-D2 MVP once again hijacked the superstar destroyer Eclipse II and crashed it into the galaxy gun like a mic drop from the sky. Kaboom! One last missile did fire just before the crash, but got sucked into Biss's gravity and detonated on the planet. The explosion wiped out the Emperor's last stronghold, poetic, catastrophic, and kind of hilarious. The Malachor Sith Temple. Want to turn Jedi into stone? Just add Kyber. Deep beneath the crust of Malachor, surrounded by jagged stone and ancient silence, lay a weapon that hadn't fired in thousands of years, because it only needed to fire once. Constructed by Darth Tanis, the Malachor Sith Temple was powered by a massive Kyber crystal designed to unleash pure destruction. When the Jedi discovered what the Sith were building, they launched an all-out assault to shut it down. The Sith fired the weapon. The result? Everyone, Jedi, Sith, soldiers, turned instantly to stone. It was like someone hit pause on history. Malachor became a dead world, frozen in time, littered with the fossilized remains of an ancient war. For centuries, the temple lay buried, forgotten, until Darth Maul returned, dragging a wide-eyed Ezra Bridger along for the ride. Together, they unlocked the Sith holocron and tried to reawaken the weapon. But before they could fire it, Ezra removed the holocron prematurely. Thanks, kid, triggering a massive overload. Meanwhile, as the temple crumbled, Ahsoka Tano faced off against Darth Vader in a haunting duel above the unstable Kyber core. In the chaos, the weapon was finally lost again, buried beneath stone and regret. To this day, the Malachor Scourge remains one of the greatest ancient disasters in Jedi history. Darth Nihilus, the Sith Lord who devoured worlds. He doesn't fire lasers, he just sucks. Some Sith Lords carry sabers, others carry scars. Darth Nihilus carried an all-consuming hunger, an endless, howling void where a soul should have been. He was born in the fires of Malachor V, one of the few survivors of the mass shadow generator. But what emerged wasn't really a man anymore. The blast tore open the Force, and what was left of him fell in. Nihilus became a wound in the Force, a hollow echo that could consume life itself. Not just a few people, not a battlefield, entire planets. His greatest atrocity came at Qatar, a Miraluka colony rich in Force sensitives. Nihilus didn't bring ships or troops, he simply fed. And in a single moment, every living thing, Jedi fauna, flora, was gone. The planet, once lush and full of life, was a dead shell, and yet he was always starving. No matter how much he consumed, the hunger grew. His body decayed until only his robes and mask remained, held together by willpower and darkness. But darkness met its match. Mitra Surik, a Jedi exile and another wound in the Force, confronted Nihilus aboard his ship, the Ravager. His Force drain, once unstoppable, had no effect on her. In a climactic duel, she destroyed him, his mask falling to the floor like a dropped secret. Even in death, his essence lingered, bound to his armor and holocron, whispering hunger to anyone foolish enough to listen. He was not a weapon built. He became one. Starkiller Base. A Death Star with a bigger ego and way worse plumbing. The First Order, fresh from the ashes of the Empire, looked at the Death Star and thought, cool. But what if it ate stars? Enter Starkiller Base. Built inside the cracked, frozen shell of Ilum, a once sacred Jedi world where Padawans harvested Kyber crystals. After decades of strip mining, the Empire hollowed it out. The First Order turned it into a planet-sized cannon. Starkiller didn't fire lasers. It fired dark energy, a concentrated stream of phantom energy that jumped through hyperspace and obliterated entire star systems. Yes, plural. To do this, it first drained nearby stars, funneling their power through magnetic fields and a massive thermal oscillator. The result? A beam that could cross the galaxy in moments and destroy multiple targets in a single shot, all visible from halfway across the galaxy. For dramatic effect, I guess. And yet, for all its size and tech, it had one weakness: an exposed thermal oscillator that couldn't be shielded while charging. The Resistance, led by Poe Dameron and friends, used the Millennium Falcon to slip through a shield refresh window and launch a trench run straight out of nostalgia. Result? Starkiller Base imploded from within. The weapon died, the system went dark, and Elam was lost forever. The Death Star Destroyers. What if we gave every Star Destroyer a Death Star laser? Oh, no. By the time the rise of Skywalker rolled around, Palpatine was basically out of ideas. So he said, let's take a regular Star Destroyer and stick a Death Star cannon underneath. The result? The Zyston-class Star Destroyer. Each one carried its own planet-killing axial superlaser, was built with stolen Kyber technology, was totally mass-producible, which is terrifying. They were a fleet of mobile apocalypse beams, each ship with the firepower of a Death Star, but without the waiting time or coffee breaks. But of course, there was a catch. These ships, relied on a central navigation beacon to coordinate hyperspace jumps, were built in Exegol's ridiculous Stormcloud hellhole, where shields and nav systems barely worked, had unshielded reactors, meaning if you hit the cannon just right. Kaboom! During the final battle of Exegol, the Resistance exploited that. A single lucky shot blew one up, triggering a chain reaction. The whole Sith fleet, supposedly unstoppable, went up like galactic fireworks. Sure, they were the strongest weapons ever built, but they came from the sequels, so we're moving on.